Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In my previous session, we talk about that how we can design a catalog item, and the second topic we talk about that workflow basically. Okay, so today we'll talk about few minor things like in a variable, what else we can do. Secondly, we'll talk about the catalog UI policy, client script, and then we'll talk about that execution plan and the flow. Okay, those things we'll try to cover. If we get some time, we'll discuss the other things also. Okay, so first things what I'm gonna do that I'm going to duplicate these tabs, and then I'll try that, and I am going to add one more variables here. So let me first do that. Right now if I try here, try it out, you can see group name, additional approval, purpose of request. I am going to add one more field before the group name, that is called type of groups, where we'll add that AD group or ServiceNow group, and then based on that we will show something. Okay, so let me first create one types called uh, select box, and here we are putting that type of group. Now, let's talk about more minor. Once we tap that, it should normally populate that. So I'm going to put that type of group. Now in the tooltips is the something whenever you hover over any of this field, it will show somewhere the additional informations. Okay. So we in the tooltip we can provide like select what kind of group you want to add. Okay, so this is the tooltip. Now next thing is that we'll talk about that annotation. Okay, in the annotation we have a help tag, help text, and instruction. So so we have to check that show help first, and then I'll put that some keyword, that help text and help tag to explain you. Okay, and there is a checkbox always expand, so if you check that it will be always expand. If you don't select that, it won't be expand by default. Okay, and there we have a uh, choice table from where we can select some choice. We are not going to select from the choice table, we just use that include none, so that it will be have one drop down extra called none. And in the default value we are not setting anything. In the permission also we are not doing any things. Now I am just making that order as a 50. Okay, so I narrow down all these possibility things and show you that like what are the things we can be able to we can be make that. And also you can make this mandatory from here only if you want, so you can check that mandatory and then save that. So in this field we make this mandatory here from directly, and now as it is a select box we have to put some, we have to give some order. So in that order what we are going to do here, first we are going to put that service now group and copy that one and pasting the same value here and putting the order as 100. And then second is that I am giving that AD group. So two option I am providing, and people can be able to select uh, AD group or ServiceNow group, and order I am making the 200 first one and second one is 100, and save these two and save the record, and let's refresh this form again. So let's understand what we are going to do here. We are going to create one field called drop down field called type of groups, and here we will see that none option because we selected that include none option from here. And secondly, we selected created two things. One is the ServiceNow group, another is the AD group, and it is mandatory as we make that mandatory from this fields level. Okay, now if you see in that in this uh, question section, we have put some tool tips that is visible whenever you hover over on that, select what kind of group you want. And secondly, you can see the more information coming from the annotation here, and we have a help text and help tag. So once you expand that, you can see that help text and help tag. Okay, help text is the plain simple and help tag is the HTML field. Those things can be show here. Okay, so that's how we can show a fields. Okay, so next thing we are going to do some scripting and some we are going to create some UI policy. Okay, so let's go back to the catalog item once more time. So now in the catalog item, we have a 4 variable starting with 50, 100, 200, 300, and we have a variable set which is 1000 order. So as per that 50, 100, all these are showing, and these are the 1000 is showing the bottom. Now what we are going to do, we are going to write a UI policy. Okay, so in writing the UI policy, before we writing the UI policy, what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna create one more field like these groups. I'm going to create one more field called AD group, another is the ServiceNow group. Two condition I am going to create here. Right now in 100 order, we have a question called group. So I am making that instead of group, I am making this value is ServiceNow group, and here the name I am putting that SN group and updating that field. Okay, so I'll create one more field called AD group because we added the type as a AD. So I will add one more groups here, or what one more, you can see that ServiceNow group name here it's showing. Now I will create one more variable called AD group name, and then we'll make that changes. So in the 200 I will make that AD group name. Here I'll put that AD group name, and here I'll put that AD admin and make that 150 order and make that insert and stay, and let's refresh that. So right now it is going to insert one fields and refresh that. So what we are going to do here, we are going to write a UI policy. Before that, just see that the form right now we have a type of groups is the ServiceNow groups and AD group, and we have a field called ServiceNow group name, we have a AD group name, and then based on that we are doing all those stuffs. Now let's go back to the catalog item, and we are going to create a UI policy so that if the people will select the ServiceNow group, then only this ServiceNow group form field will be visible and mandatory. Okay, so let's do that. So now remember that I could have make this mandatory, but it is not from the field level. I can open the fields and make that mandatory, but I don't need that always. I need in certain condition. If the peoples will be selected that ServiceNow group, then only I should be make the mandatory. I should not make the mandatory always. There is a condition. Based on the condition I want to make this is a mandatory, right? Because these fields we make that mandatory in my past video from the field from that field level, because we need this field mandatory always, but these two fields we are looking for based on the condition. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm writing a UI policy, and here I will put the short description as a type of group is ServiceNow. Okay, so I'll put that condition. And in that catalog UI policy action, I am going to define that what variable. So ServiceNow groups will be mandatory true and visible true if somebody selected that group of type of group is ServiceNow. Next thing is that if you see there is a reverse if false, it means that if the condition is not satisfied, what will be happen? Whatever the value it is, it will be act as a reverse. Like if the type of group is not service now, this won't be mandatory and this won't be visible. It will be only visible and mandatory if this is matches. So let's refresh and try it. So right now you can see that field is automatically hide because the current condition is not matches, the type of group is not matches. So that's why it is not visible and not mandatory right now. If we select that service now group, you can see that field is visible and mandatory. Okay, so that is the condition base. We don't need at that form level. People can be able to select the ID group. In that, if people will be select the ID group, we don't need to show the service now group. Okay, right? So that is the one things we can do. Similarly, same things you can perform some run script. You can start some scripting, but if that is required, okay, it's always better to use the UI policy action instead of writing customized code. But if you require some code, you can definitely use the code run script. Here is the option is that run script UI policy type, like mobile service portal or all. So if you want to run this script on the mobile, you can, or else you can run on your mobile, or you can run in your desktop depending on your user criteria. Okay, so remember that using the UI policy, we can make the field read only, mandatory and visible always. We can make UI policy read only, mandatory and visible. These things, three things we can do. Okay, so that is the UI policy we covered. Second thing we are going to do that we are going to discuss about the client script. We can do the same steps, same thing on the client script also, but depending on the situation, there could be many condition. Okay, so depending on the situation, we can do that. So in that client script, we have a few options. First things is that on change, on load, on submit. Three types of client script can be written. On change is that some value changes happens, you need to write some code, then you select the on change. On load is whenever the form is loaded, whenever you refresh that form first time, you want to make some changes or you want to make do some decision, then only you can select the on load. On submit is whenever you the end user sub click the order, now you want to make something, then only you can do that on submit. So what we are going to do here, we are going to write a on change script. Once you select the on change, there is one variable name will be visible. You have to select the variable for which variable or which variable value changes you want to run the script, right? So type of group, I am selecting the type of group. Once type of group will be change, value will be changes, I need to run some script. Okay, what script we want to run? So in condition, what I am trying to write here, new value. So new value is the parameter where you can get the new value. So new value equal to, I am putting that AD group. If the new value is the AD group, what I am going to do that I am going to set mandatory, what value I am going to mandatory, that AD group name, AD group underscore name, I am making that is mandatory as a true. So you can see previously I do the same thing, and also g underscore form dot set display, and here I am going to do that AD group is visible is true. So what we are trying to do that if somebody select that AD group, we are going to make those things mandatory. Else, what we are going to do, we are going to hide and make that mandatory false. So we copy that same script and make this false here and false. So you can remember that in the UI policy it was so easy. We could have done that in a just adding that field, right? But in client script, if there is many condition, many thing is there, many logic is there, then only we can write the client script. Otherwise, if it is simple, we can do for the UI policy. Okay, so let's save that and then go back to the form. Okay, let's refresh the form. Now you can see in on load it does not affect anything, right? Let's try that. So suppose you select the service now. Once you select the service now, you can see that service now group is now showing, AD group is gone, AD group is not showing. Okay, AD group is not showing. And once you select the AD groups, you can see that AD group name is showing as a mandatory, but the service now group is gone, because first thing is service now group visibility is controlling through that UI policy, and AD groups visibility is controlling through the client script, right? But just think about that, when we refresh that, when we load the form initially, that AD group name is showing, which is we don't need, because if somebody select none, we don't need to show that, right? We don't need to show that. So for that we can write a client script, onload client script to hide that variable, right? We can write a client script, onload client script, and simply hide that. Similarly, here we have a UI type. You can select the desktop or mobile. If you want to run that in service portal, you can select the service portal. If you want to run in your normal browser, you can select the desktop. Or if you select all, it will be applicable for both the instant. So we can write a onload client script to hide this field whenever the form is loaded, right? That is also possible. Or in the onChange client script, this block is known as a onload client script. This block will act as a onload client script. Whenever first time form will be loaded, this block will be executed. Okay, so we can make that set mandatory false on this onload section and save that. And now if I save that, this field will be not more visible in that onload. Let's try that. As you can see, that field is gone, it is not showing in anymore. So suppose you select the ServiceNow group, it is showing the ServiceNow. If you select the AD group, it will be show the AD group. Okay, so that is the current configuration. So if you have any doubts, let me know about client script or about our UI policy. Okay. Next thing I am going to cover here is this tricky things. If you see that some variables in some catalog item, the variable are splitted into two parts. Here one variable, and this position there is another variable, right? Like in left side and right side, that this portion is split into two part. How we can make that? Okay. To make that, we'll quickly do that. Currently, how many variables we have? We have a first variable is type, and secondly, in between these two there will be one variable, and thirdly we have a variable called additional approval, and fourthly we have a variable called purpose of request. So we have a basically whenever we are loading that, just forget about these two. Whenever the form is loading, we have actually 1 2 3 1 2 3 and 4 variables. I'm not talking about these two because this is coming from the variable set, we'll talk about later, but these four are coming from our variables. Now if you want to show this value, those fields in a different way, like in split way, how can we do that? First thing, we identify that this is the first variable, and in between this there will be one variable, and third variable is this, and fourth variable is this, right? So we need to be put the split in between that, in between 150 and 200, right? So let's put a split like 170 order. Okay, I'm going to put one split under 170. Let's do that. So the type will be container split. So I'm going to put the type is container split, and once you select that, you should be able to put the order is 170. So I just put that container speed is 170. Now if you see the first variable, in between there will be one variable, then there is a split, there is a third and fourth. Now we have to also do the containers start and container end. We have to define that. Okay, so container start will be before this variable, so 40, and container end will be 350. Let's do that. So I am going to create a new variable with container start, container start here 40, and then in the question I have to put some question like start. I am just doing that. It came automatically. If you select the display title, this question will be displayed in top of that. If you don't, you just leave it. Okay, submit that, and then we have to do one more container called container end. Let's do that as a 350. Let's refresh that form. So now you can see this is split it, but there is a one challenge here. You can see this block is occupied in some odd because there will be one field whenever you select it. So that is expected. We cannot do anything. Okay, you either you can move this field to here and move this field to below of that. That we cannot do. So if you want to split something, you can split that way. Like you can make this field in two parts. Okay. Next things I am going to do that I am going to talk about that. uh, the very interesting is that execution plan. What is the execution plan and why we need the execution plan? Okay, so in the workflow we are deriving in a multiple way, right? We are defining workflow, we are sending notification, we are doing a lot of things. Similarly, you have another choice where you can select the execution plan. Okay, what is the execution plan? So if you select that, once I select the execution plan, workflow will be automatically cleaned up, right? So either you can select in a process engine, either you select workflow, flow, or execution plan. If you select that any of these, other will be blank. Okay, so let's talk about that. What is the execution plan? Execution plan is a type of simple straightforward steps that will help you to generate multiple either task or maybe multiple record. Okay, so let's see what is the execution plan. So whenever you create a catalog item, by default there is execution plan called default. Okay, and this default execution plan, what it is defined. So I just open that execution plan and discard and open that. So in the execution plan it is mentioned that this is going to create a catalog task, a C task, without any condition, and the time duration is 2 days, and parent table is the SC REQ item, and this should have create two tasks. One is the provided service, another is the access scope task, and it should the task should assign to the field service and the software service, and each service have 1 day delivery time. And then if you want to add some approval, you can add the approval by clicking the new approvals. You can add that. Okay, so this is the one of the execution plan you can attach to that catalog item. Once you attach that execution plan to that to that catalog item, it will be generated one by one task. Okay, and if you want to add some approval, it can be, you can be able to generate the approval. So that is the overview of the execution plan I just told you. So today we discussed these many things. If you have any question, just let me know, or else in next video we'll talk few more topics called record producer, order guide, and in the execution plan we'll talk about that flow designer. Okay, thank you very much, have a great day.